One day, all television stations in the country broadcast a program featuring a renowned virologist, Dr. Alice Crippen, who announces that her laboratory has discovered a miraculous cure. She explains that her approach was to work in reverse, to take something created by nature and reprogram it to work against disease. Alice offers a metaphor. Imagine a car being driven by a drunk driver, posing a danger to everyone around. But replace that driver with a sober, competent one, and everything changes immediately. In the same way, a virus modified by scientists and given a new purpose begins to heal the body instead of triggering and spreading illness. Dr. Crippen and her colleagues conducted trials on a large number of patients suffering from a terrifying disease, specifically various forms of cancer, and after the experiments, all 10,000 test subjects were completely cured. Humanity, she says, may soon forget this illness forever. 3 years later, New York City stands utterly deserted, and wild animals roam its streets. Only one speeding car drives through the empty avenues. At the wheel is former U.S. Army Colonel Robert Neville, and beside him sits his dog, Samantha, or simply Sam, as he calls her. The man accelerates to top speed, knowing that on these deserted roads, he can't harm anyone, yet danger still looms for him. Birds and wild animals now populate the city unchecked. He scares off a flock of birds with the roar of his engine. Later, noticing that Sam tenses up, Neville realizes she senses something. Moments later, he sees a large herd of deer ahead. He speeds up, trying to shoot one on the move, but at such velocity, it's difficult to aim accurately. In the blink of an eye, the herd vanishes among the many abandoned cars cluttering the boulevard. Realizing that the hunt from the car has failed, Neville and Sam head on foot into overgrown streets choked with grass and bushes. Eventually, he spots a lone deer and creeps up close enough to shoot. But just as he's about to pull the trigger, a lioness attacks the animal. And moments later, a lion and cubs emerge from behind a building to join the feast. Neville holds his rifle steady, unsure what to expect from the king of beasts, but the lions are preoccupied with their prey and pay no attention to the man. At that moment, Neville's watch emits a beeping signal, and he calls his dog, giving the command to retreat. Dusk approaches as Neville and Sam return to the house where they live. He walks to the door, spraying his tracks with a scent-masking liquid, glances around the area one last time, then locks the heavy iron doors securely. He spends the evening in the kitchen, preparing dinner from canned goods, since he wasn't able to catch fresh meat today. Although Sam shows little interest in eating boiled vegetables, the man and the dog begin their meal, watching old television broadcasts that feature segments about the remarkable work of Dr. Robert Neville, who is searching for a vaccine against a virus that, once a triumph over cancer, has turned into mankind's deadliest enemy. After dinner, the pair head to the bathroom. Neville thoroughly washes the dog, gently coaxing her to eat more vegetables, saying it's good for her health. Sam calmly allows herself to be lathered, as if she understands every word her owner says. Everything feels like a slice of ordinary life, as if there is no extinct city outside the window, no empty homes. Neville puts on some music and sings along to the tune playing from the speakers, but suddenly stops, frozen, as if realizing that something is terribly wrong. Sam barks, trying to get his attention, and the man finally snaps out of it, reassures her that he's okay, and begins closing all the windows with heavy metal shutters. That night, Neville and Sam stay in the bathroom, listening to strange noises and distant cries of unknown creatures echoing from outside. Neville's thoughts drift back to the evening when the city was under military lockdown, and he returned home to fetch his family, his wife, Zoe, and their daughter, Marley. The little girl is scared, especially since tomorrow is Christmas and her presents are still at home. She whimpers and begs her father to go back. Chaos reigns all around. Communication lines are down, television is off the air, and people are left to guess how to act under the brutal quarantine conditions. Colonel Neville urges his family to hurry. They have only 30 minutes to evacuate from Manhattan Island. His wife doesn't understand why Neville is sending them off alone, but without explaining, he simply asks her to withdraw all their money from the account once they're safe and head to his cousin's house outside the city, where they'll be waiting. He explains that the situation in the country and in the world is dire. The miracle cure for cancer turned out to be a terrible virus, one that escaped its creator's control and is now wiping out humanity. Those not killed immediately have transformed into vampires, albino, cannibalistic mutants who are extremely vulnerable to sunlight and can only emerge at night. The virus spreads easily through the air, and infection requires only close proximity to an infected person. Marley senses her parents' fear and tension and keeps trying to get their attention, begging them to go back home. But both her mother and father hush her, especially as a presidential address begins to play on the radio. The man announces that, as painful and terrifying as it is, he has signed an order for military quarantine in New York City. and now people can only put their faith in God. Neville, however, believes there's still a chance to fight back against the virus. He confesses to his family that if they can develop a vaccine, even within the next 2 weeks, they may be able to stop the global pandemic. He assures his wife that he can do it. Zoe pleads with him to do it outside the city, but Neville reminds her that this is ground zero, the origin point, and he is duty-bound to stay at his post and stop the catastrophe. At that moment, a man with a distorted face lunges at their car. The girl screams in terror and Neville snaps back to the present. The alarm goes off and it's morning. The man begins his daily routine, physical exercise and a workout on the machines before heading down into the basement where he has a modern laboratory set up. After sanitizing his hands, he begins testing the serum he developed from his own blood on lab animals. Opening the cages, he sees that the lab mice and rats are behaving extremely aggressively, lunging at him the moment they see him. He records his observations on a voice recorder, noting that the vaccine isn't working. But as he inspects each cage, he suddenly notices that one rat in Section 6 is behaving almost normally, much calmer than the others. Its skin pigmentation is nearly restored, and its eyes look alert and focused instead of glazed over with rage. This means that the version of the vaccine marked number 6 is having a positive effect. Neville now needs to conduct the same experiment on an infected human, one he'll have to capture. Later, he puts on his hunting gear and arms himself. The pair step outside, all is quiet and calm. For today's hunt, Neville chooses a jeep outfitted for tracking large animals, and the two of them head out to areas where humans might be found. But first, Neville and Sam stop by a store that once sold DVDs. Inside, mannequins are positioned around the place, and Neville greets them by name, names he has given them, and compliments their stylish clothing, maintaining the illusion of a social interaction. Inside, he browses the discs and picks out a few, then chats with the cashier, inquiring about a pretty brunette mannequin by the shelves and noting that he's made it halfway through the video collection. Outside again, he continues the conversation, now with Sam, explaining that he simply doesn't know how to talk to the beautiful woman who's caught his eye. Neville argues with the dog as if she's protesting, insisting that maybe the girl wouldn't appreciate his lingering stares. As they chat, the two methodically walk the city streets, trying to find mutants, but so far nothing. Spotting curtained windows in an apartment, Neville goes inside. The place is in disarray, but there are no people. However, he finds canned goods in the kitchen, which he takes. Just as he's about to leave, he notices a note on the door, a Christmas greeting left behind by the previous residents. He sees children's cribs and realizes that a large, loving family once lived here. He pauses for a moment, as if mourning a lost world. Then the man and his dog leave, heading to the port. Each day, Neville broadcasts a radio message he recorded, calling out to survivors. He urges them to come find him at the pier of the southern seaport every day at exactly noon. He promises help, food, shelter, and survival training in this new world. He hopes with all his heart that someone will respond, that his loneliness will finally end. But so far, no one has. That day, Neville plays golf on the deck of a military ship docked in the harbor, bragging to Samantha about his solid swing. Suddenly, Sam tenses up, indicating someone or something is nearby. Neville surveys the area through the scope of his rifle and, spotting an antelope, takes off after it, weaving between abandoned cars. Sam, driven by excitement, sprints far ahead, and although Neville yells for her to stop, she runs into the dark interior of a former bank building. Neville follows and tries to locate her, but silence and darkness fill the space. Suddenly, a sharp, ear-splitting shriek echoes from somewhere, the kind mutants make. Then silence again. Neville realizes that this place must be where the infected hide from the sunlight. He whispers for his dog, urging her to come back, but she doesn't respond. He moves cautiously from one room to the next. All is dark and quiet, though bloodstains are scattered across the floor. In one corridor, he finds the severed head of the antelope he was just chasing. Finally, he enters a room where the beam from his flashlight illuminates a cluster of tightly packed, standing human figures. Neville immediately switches the light off and carefully begins retreating toward the exit. Just then, he hears a whimper and finally spots Sam hiding under a table. He whispers for her to get out with him, and that's when he realizes they are not alone. In the next moment, a mutant attacks him. Neville opens fire, and then he and Sam run full speed toward the exit, hearing the infected, now awakened by the sound of gunfire, roaring and chasing after them. One of the mutants nearly catches up as Neville smashes through a window, and the two of them fall into the pavement from the second floor. The pursuing mutant tumbles out after them, thrashing wildly in the sunlight before going still, quickly killed by the exposure. Neville looks back and suddenly sees another mutant standing just inside the shadows, watching him with eerie intensity. Realizing there are many infected inside, Neville sets a trap. He tells Sam to stay in the car. The infected could turn her, whereas he's immune. He draws blood from his own vein and uses it as bait in the trap. Before long, it works, and one of the infected is captured inside a black, rubberized containment sack. Just as Neville prepares to retrieve the body, a mutant's face suddenly appears from the darkness, screaming at him with pure rage, as if furious that a human dared to take one of their own. But seemingly afraid to enter the sunlight, the mutant retreats back into the shadows. Neville transports the captured mutant back to his lab. Upon closer examination, it turns out to be a female, around 20 years old. It took a 6-fold dose of a powerful sedative just to subdue her. He studies her body, noting that her pupils are dilated and unresponsive to light. Her breathing is rapid and shallow. As he inspects her skin, he discovers a butterfly tattoo on the back of her neck and observes an extreme reaction to ultraviolet light. All symptoms confirm the presence of the virus in her system. To destroy it, Neville injects her with serum number 6, the same compound that recently healed the rat. The human trial begins. After administering the serum, Neville steps back and monitors the changes. Soon, the girl's breathing slows and her pulse drops. She appears to be stabilizing. Neville notes an initial improvement when suddenly the mutant wakes up, bolts upright, and begins thrashing on the table, screaming horribly. Then all vital signs vanish and she falls still. Disappointed, Neville injects her again, this time with infected blood, and she resumes breathing. He concludes that serum number 6 is not suitable for humans and the cure is still elusive. Neville locks the girl in a containment room, separated from the lab by bulletproof glass, and steps outside. Today marks day 1001 of his solitude, and the encounter with the infected confirms that the virus spreads both through the air and direct contact. Sadly, dogs are only immune to the airborne strain, meaning Sam must never come into contact with a mutant. What also troubles Neville is that he has yet to figure out how to transfer his immunity to infected individuals. Even more disturbing is the memory of today's male mutant, the one who had stepped into the light when Neville captured what appeared to be his mate. That behavior is deeply unusual, given that the infected have nearly completed their evolution, and all traces of typical human behavior are believed to be long gone. Deep in thought, Neville once again recalls the evening he brought his family to the port, which was overwhelmed by crowds of people desperate to escape Manhattan. Carrying his daughter in his arms, the man pushes through the crowd with the help of the military escort. But his eyes keep catching glimpses of desperate, contorted faces of people who realize they won't be saved and are doomed to die a terrible death. One woman in particular makes a lasting impression. She begs the colonel to take her child, insisting he isn't infected. But at that moment, Neville's wife is stopped by the guards, who announce that she's sick. Neville demands another test, and when he gives them his name, the soldier complies. This time the device shows that she is healthy and she is allowed to pass through to the port, while the other woman screams after them, begging them to take her child. Neville's daughter doesn't understand why the little girl can't come with them, but the colonel only quickens his pace, eager to move past the checkpoint. Soon Neville, his family, and the soldiers escorting them reach an open space where a helicopter is landing to take his wife and daughter away. The girl is crying, not wanting to leave her father, and gives him her beloved puppy, Samantha, although Neville refuses at first, saying he won't be able to take proper care of her. The helicopter lifts off while a tearful Neville waves goodbye. And then, Neville wakes up in his bed in a city ravaged by infection and long since deserted. His morning begins like any other in recent years, while old news reports play on the TV about hospitals implementing quarantine procedures and a vaccine being developed to kill the virus. His name is mentioned as the man who is certain to stop the extinction of humanity. Later, Neville broadcasts his usual radio message and, taking Sam with him, heads back to the port. There, he passes the time fishing, still hoping someone will respond to his call and come. But again, his wait is fruitless, and he and Sam are left alone once more. As evening approaches and they return home, Neville suddenly sees a human figure on the street. Unsure why the man is just standing there, or even who he is, Neville gets out of the car and walks closer, only to recognize the mannequin from the video store. But how did it get here? Confused, Neville starts to panic. He shouts and demands an answer. When none comes, he opens fire with his rifle. The mannequin falls. Suspecting someone may be watching from the nearby buildings, Neville fires at them too, just in case. Getting no response, he walks up to the mannequin and, stepping into a puddle in front of it, triggers a trap. One identical to the one he had recently used to catch an infected. He's yanked into the air, caught in a snare, and Sam can do nothing to help him. Hanging upside down for too long, Neville eventually loses consciousness. Evening falls, his alarm blares, warning that he's overdue to hide. Neville comes to and struggles to free himself from the snare. When he falls, he severely injures his back and cuts his leg. That's when he sees a figure in the dark, an infected, watching him from inside a building. He fights to reach the car, but the infected unleash their mutant dogs on him, and just as the last rays of sunlight vanish, the creatures charge at Neville and his pet. He shoots with his pistol, managing to kill the rabid beasts, but Sam is bitten by one of them. Neville watches helplessly as his faithful friend is attacked, unable to intervene while fending off the rest. At last, he shoots all the mutant dogs, but Sam is seriously wounded. He brings her home, carries her into the lab, and gives her an injection. Sitting on the floor, he hugs the dog, trying to calm her down, but the virus takes its toll. Sam begins to turn and tries to attack him. Neville, realizing this is no longer his loyal and only friend, strangles her with his bare hands. Then he mourns her, understanding that now he truly is alone. The next morning, he takes Sam's body to an overgrown park and buries her there. He returns to the empty city and once again stops by the store. While picking out some DVDs, he speaks to the mannequin, begging it to talk to him. Desperate to hear even a single word directed at him, the man weeps. Spending the day in despair, that evening Neville drives to the pier where he always told survivors to meet him and sets up an ambush. When darkness fully descends, a horde of mutants emerges onto the dock. Devastated by Sam's death, Neville starts the engine and plows into the creatures. But there are too many, and the infected act in an unusually coordinated, purposeful way. One of them even topples a pole onto Neville's vehicle. The monsters manage to overturn the car, leaving Neville completely exposed. Just as he prepares to die, the infected suddenly flee, scared off by the sudden glare of a spotlight, and someone, whom Neville can't see clearly due to a blow to the head, comes to his aid and pulls him from the wrecked vehicle. Half conscious, Neville tries to make out the face of his rescuer, but hears only a woman's voice, urgently asking him for his address. Summoning his strength, he tells the woman who saved him that she must drive around the city until sunrise before taking him home. The infected must not be able to trace where he lives. Then consciousness slips away, and he finds himself back in the past, at the pier, just after the helicopter carrying his loved ones has taken off. He waves to his wife and daughter, seated inside, as little Samantha licks the tears from his cheeks while the aircraft descends. Suddenly, missiles strike from out of nowhere. The port is under attack. People scream and flee in panic. Neville watches in horror as another small, out-of-control helicopter crashes into the one carrying his family. He screams, trying to stop the inevitable. He opens his eyes in the present and hears the voices of cartoon characters. Turning his head with difficulty, Neville sees the television on. He's lying on his couch in the living room. When he tries to get up, his injured leg sends a jolt of pain. He touches the wound and finds it neatly stitched, no longer bleeding. Hearing noises from the kitchen, he slowly rises, pulls a pistol from a hidden drawer, and limps toward the sound where a strange woman is cooking and a child sits at the table. They freeze when they see the gun. Neville sets the weapon down on the counter. The woman quickly assures him everything is fine and that they're not afraid of him. She's made breakfast from his supplies and invites him to join them. She also found the antibiotics he needed. Without them, his wound could become infected. Her name is Anna, and the boy is Ethan. She asks him to eat something to regain his strength. Anna explains that they came from Maryland after hearing his radio message. They were at the dock at noon and waited there all day, and she's glad they didn't leave before nightfall. She says they're headed to Vermont, where there's a colony of survivors who are immune to the virus. Hearing this, Neville suddenly becomes furious, insisting there are no safe zones and no survivor colonies. Everything happened too fast. No government measures worked. Everyone who could have survived is either dead or has mutated into monsters. Anna seems unfazed by his outburst and calmly states that the colony is located in the mountains, where the virus can't survive due to the cold. Neville, unable to contain himself, jumps up and smashes a plate, yelling that it's a lie. Everyone is dead. But seeing the fear in the eyes of the woman and the boy, he apologizes and blames his behavior on everything he's been through. His nerves are shot. He had saved the bacon she found and cooked for a special occasion, and now everything has gone wrong. Leaving them in the kitchen, Neville retreats upstairs to be alone. He sits in the bathroom for a long time, remembering Sam. Later, Neville collects himself and comes back downstairs, where Ethan is watching cartoons in the living room. Neville begins reciting the lines with the animated characters, matching their words exactly. To the guest's surprise, he explains that he, too, loves cartoons. Finally, fully present again, he thanks Anna for helping him. She understands that he's simply forgotten how to talk to people and forgives his roughness. Anna shares that they were evacuated on a Red Cross ship and spent a long time at sea. But supplies ran low and the ship had to dock. In one port, a crew member became infected, and soon only 5 immune people were left. In the end, only she and Ethan escaped. The others were taken by the infected. Anna says she recognized him right away. Neville's name had been well known before the quarantine. She offers him a chance to leave with them. It's too late now, as night is near, but they could leave at dawn. Neville interrupts her. This is ground zero, and his place is here. He must find the cure, and that can only be done with access to his lab. Later, Neville, Anna, and Ethan return to the place where he was trapped. Neville explains that the snare was set up exactly the way he himself constructs traps. The infected couldn't have done it. Their brains only function at an instinctive level. They don't know how to plan, love, or hate. But Anna now has questions about the evolution of the infected. If they are evolving, then their actions might be explainable. Their conversation is interrupted by Ethan, who jumps into a pool where Neville scatters fish food. The boy splashes in the middle of a school of fish, enjoying the rare fun of swimming, even if he admits the water is pretty cold. Neville urges the others to hurry. He needs to prepare another dose of the serum, and he also needs ice, because after seeing Ethan standing perfectly still, he suddenly theorized that lowering the infected subject's body temperature with ice might improve the treatment's effectiveness. Now he's eager to test the hypothesis. They return to the lab, where the female test subject, the infected girl, is still lying on the table. Neville packs ice around her body and begins the next trial of serum number 6. Anna makes him a cup of coffee. Seeing the infected woman, she looks at her with curiosity. After all, mutants never stand still, and it's impossible to examine them in detail. Neville explains that he's trying to lower her body temperature with the ice in the hopes that it will accelerate the effect of the vaccine. Anna listens carefully, then notices the wall covered in photographs of infected individuals. Neville explains that these are the people he tested the vaccine on, and they all died here in his lab. Later, Neville and Anna go upstairs to put Ethan to bed. The boy had fallen asleep waiting for the adults. Neville carries him into his daughter's old room and shares that he and his wife named their daughter Marley after Bob Marley. Anna reveals that she's never even heard of the singer, and Neville begins singing his songs, making her laugh. He then puts on some Bob Marley music and explains that the singer truly believed hate and fascism could be eradicated with love. Once he was supposed to perform at a peace rally, but a terrorist came to his home and shot him. Despite being seriously wounded, Bob Marley went on stage 2 days later because madmen who destroy the world never take a day off, which means good people can't afford to rest either. Anna listens to the story with tears in her eyes. Evening falls, Neville shuts the metal shutters, and Anna once again tries to persuade him to come with them. But Neville is convinced there's no such thing as a survivor colony. He helped with the evacuation and saw firsthand what happened at the port. But Anna insists she's certain the colony exists because God told her so. It sounds insane, she admits, but something prompted her to turn on the radio. Something led her here and made her wait until nightfall, despite the danger. She knows now that last night, Neville had been trying to take his own life, dragging as many infected with him as he could, and she showed up to stop him. That couldn't be a coincidence. But Neville doesn't want to hear anything about God, even as Anna pleads with him to listen, because now the world is so quiet. And if you listen closely, she says, you can hear God's plan. Her words only infuriate Neville. Out of 6 billion people on Earth, 90% died, and just 1% were born with natural immunity. That means there are about 12 million healthy people left on the planet. The rest, 500 million, turned into horrible monsters who kill everyone they see because they are starving. They devour anyone in their path, so all their families, all their loved ones, everyone they ever knew or loved, are now dead, completely and forever. So no, there is no God. Anna tries to respond, but Neville is suddenly distracted by noises coming from outside. She explains that she brought him here just as dawn was breaking. He asks her to turn off the lights and moves to the window, peering through the small observation slot in the metal shutter. Looking outside, Neville realizes the infected have found them. Anna immediately runs upstairs to the boy, while Neville sees a massive horde of angry, hungry mutants charging toward the house. He activates the high-powered floodlights set up around the perimeter, but the infected smash them with ease, moving with shocking coordination. The light that should have stopped them vanishes. Realizing they're about to break into the house, Neville triggers explosive charges planted in the parked cars out front. A massive blast rips through the street, hurling the reanimated bodies in all directions. Dazed by the concussion, Neville regains consciousness and, seeing no more infected outside, hurries upstairs to find Anna. He calls out for her, but she doesn't answer, and that alarms him. He slows his pace and sees a broken, blood-smeared window in one of the rooms. Neville realizes the worst has happened. Anna has been attacked. Suddenly, he's assaulted by an infected. Neville fights back with everything he's got. The creature is brutally strong, and the colonel struggles to hold his own. Spotting a screwdriver on the floor, he manages to grab it and stab the infected in the leg. The creature throws him across the room. Neville tumbles down the stairs, landing right next to his weapon cache. He grabs a shotgun and begins firing at the monster, but the creature is fast and dodges the shots, fleeing into the next room. Neville realizes the creature is hiding nearby. He searches for the infected and fires blindly, causing an explosion in the room. The mutant darts out and quickly escapes to the second floor. Neville rushes after him but can't locate his enemy. Seeing a shattered window, he assumes the infected has fled the house. He runs to find Anna and discovers that she and Ethan are hiding under a table, while the mutant is smashing through the ceiling above, apparently thinking the humans are hiding upstairs. Neville signals Anna and Ethan to stay silent and quietly moves toward the cabinet where he placed his pistol that morning. The mutant hears his footsteps and lunges at him. Neville grabs the gun just in time and kills the creature, but before dying, it emits a horrifying shriek, a call that is immediately answered by other monsters outside. Neville looks through the observation window and sees his old adversary, the same mutant, leading a horde toward the house. It's now clear that these beings can communicate and have likely evolved into a new species. This particular mutant appears to be their leader, obeyed without question. Neville orders Anna and Ethan to run to the basement lab as fast as they can while the infected swarm the house, climbing the walls and pouring through broken windows. They make it to the basement just in time. While Neville seals the entrance, Anna steps behind the bulletproof glass and notices the female mutant on the gurney. She's breathing unsteadily and deeply, and her appearance has visibly improved. Excited, Anna calls out to Neville. The vaccine is working. He's found a cure for the transformation, but Neville has no time to process the discovery. At that moment, the infected burst into the basement. He manages to shut the glass barrier, but though it's bulletproof, it likely won't withstand the sheer force of the attack. Anna and Ethan embrace, giving up hope, while Neville shouts and points to the girl on the gurney, trying to explain that he can help the infected now. They don't listen. The leader of the pack, Neville's longtime nemesis, pushes forward and slams into the glass, clearly communicating that Neville's death is imminent. Neville begs the mutant to let him save them, to give him the chance to heal them. But the mutant keeps pounding the glass. It begins to crack. Suddenly, the infected leader stops and draws the outline of a butterfly on the glass. Neville immediately remembers the butterfly tattoo on the girl's neck and realizes why the mutants came. Without a word, he lowers his gun and places it on the floor. Then he pulls out a syringe filled with the girl's blood and tells Anna this is the cure. He asks her to open the door so he can take the gurney out and return the woman to her mate. Despite her fear, Anna understands this is their only hope. She opens the door. The infected surge forward, but the furious roar of their leader halts them instantly. Anna holds Ethan and tells him not to look at the infected, while Neville wheels out the gurney. He slowly approaches the alpha mutant, showing he's surrendering. The creature doesn't attack, though his fury is obvious. Neville asks permission to take the syringe and walks cautiously to the table as the others surround him, ready to tear him apart. But another command from the leader holds them back. Neville injects the serum into the girl. She soon regains consciousness and, recognizing her partner, reaches out to him. Stunned, Neville watches as the two embrace, overwhelmed with emotion. At last, the infected leader lifts the woman in his arms, growls one final time at Neville, and leaves, followed by the rest of the pack. Neville looks at the wall filled with photographs of his test subjects and realizes that, in the eyes of the infected, he had become the monster. Someone who experimented on sentient, still-living beings with altered consciousness. He sinks to the floor in exhaustion as Anna comforts Ethan, still in disbelief that they survived. The next morning, Neville abandons his research and sets out for Vermont with Anna and Ethan, in hopes of finding the survivor colony. They cross the George Washington Bridge, and Anna recalls how she recorded a new radio message urging any survivors to join them at the colony. Most importantly, she says, people must believe that hope still exists and that they are not alone. The film is based on the novel I Am Legend by Richard Matheson, though it differs significantly from the source material. The book focuses more on the protagonist's internal world, his struggle with loneliness and despair, as well as his experiments with the virus and his efforts to find a cure. The film, by contrast, emphasizes action and visual spectacle. Nevertheless, both versions offer a gripping adventure in a post-apocalyptic world and raise profound questions about human nature and the will to survive. It's a must-watch for fans of post-apocalyptic stories and science fiction.